We're here with Joyce, where we just got done laughing at my expense trying to do the thriller dance. And you can laugh, Joyce. It's okay. I think if Joyce says to do it and she challenges me, I might have to put my audition practice video out there for everyone else to laugh at too, because doing things like this is not always easy for folks, but you do some pretty brave things that I don't think I can do. Let's get right into it. Welcome to the show, Joyce.
Thank you. It's so good to see you again and talk to you. This is going to be so fun and great.
I know we had so much fun this summer. I loved meeting you and your family, and we were together to celebrate and have our annual board meeting because Space Camp is back in a big way.
And it was interesting too because I was a pandemic selectee. So this whole time for the Space Camp alumni board, I didn't get to meet anybody in person. So I was like, how do I interact with people again? And I think when I saw you at the Marriott, I was like, I know you. And
Me
I just like
too.
ran up to you.
It was mutual. And then you know who was there between us?
Yes.
Jinx. Jinx the robot, not buy me a Coke. Oh, now we're really aging ourselves. Yeah, that was so cool. And those guys do that just for fun. They just put robotics together for things like this that draw people's attention. And I loved it. That was such a great weekend.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I honestly didn't know what to expect. I know people said, and I think 2019 was the last like big party that they had. But coming back to it, I think people just felt good to see each other and be together again and to
Totally.
celebrate Space Camp and Aviation Challenge.
Yes. Yes, it was the anniversary of Aviation Challenge. And when then we had some personal ties. I mean, you're right. I was right there with you at the board because I think I came on shortly after you to the board and never met a single person in person. Everyone
Mhm.
has been on virtual. And so it was great to come down and do that. And then to be back home at Space Camp, and I really do call it home. What year did you attend? And then what year were you a counselor?
I attended in 2000 and 2001. I went to, since I was a high schooler, I attended Advanced Space Academy. And that just basically sealed everything for me. I still want to be an astronaut, um, but we'll get to that later, I guess. And then I was a counselor for Aviation Challenge in 2007 while I was in college.
That's awesome. And very similar. So I went in high school too, which I think for me personally, like I wouldn't have been ready in eighth grade or younger. I would have just like, I would have had a blast. But I think when you're a little bit older and you go to space camp, you really recognize and are able to like get into the details, and it has a lot more that you can hold on to. I mean, you can play, but you can also really learn. There's so much to learn, and you walk through that museum with a different perspective because you're seeing history right there, and then you're learning from your guidebook, but you can really get into the weeds. So for you and I both, I think it really also solely sparked me as well. Is that what kind of got you on your path into the services?
You mean in the military?
Yeah.
Oh, I think so because ever since I was 8, I wanted to be an astronaut. It kind of just started basically. My parents kind of forced me to go to summer school, and there was one where it was all space themed, and I was like, "This is really cool." So I kind of kept that in the back of my mind, and then I would just look at astronaut biographies, saying, "How can I become an astronaut?" And then I think a lot of those folks, they or the astronauts, they had military service, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to the Air Force and I'm going to be a pilot. I'm
So
not,
cool.
but still, I think so. And then with Space Camp, that really pushed me into the STEM type of career fields as well. So I was able to mesh both of those when I became active duty after
Awesome.
college.
That's so great. Okay, where'd you go to college?
I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University
Yes, so cool.
in Arizona. I just want to make that clear, just because there's two big campuses, and then there's the worldwide campus that you see in a lot of online and worldwide and things like that. So
That's so cool. Okay, so you're out in Arizona, and then when you were you in college when you went back to space camp to be a counselor?
I was, yes.
Me too. I think I just graduated. I was in between. Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah.
great. Yeah. Can you imagine that they put all their trust in us? We're like, no, we're here to play and get paid. Oh, and also the kids.
Yeah, I know, right? Like we're in charge of 25 kids for like 10 hours. Like,
I know. And those days, like as hard of work as it was, so fun. And to turn around, like even if you got like a day off, which you're lucky you got that, because sometimes they'd graduate on Sunday and you'd have to work on Monday.
yeah.
Maybe you got like 5 hours off to yourself, and then you like, if you were lucky enough to have a car, get off campus, get your groceries and get back and then
Yeah.
do it all over again. But it's like those moments, like those, I think the last days when they graduate, you feel it. You're so energized and you're like, wow, we accomplished the mission. We did it. We succeeded. We're completed.
Mhm.
And also, you get to see the parents reunite. You get to see a different kid leave than
Yeah.
what arrived. And then you get to see those new kids starting to arrive with their big eyes and they're looking around everywhere. And you're like, okay, the energy I was depleted from is coming back. I'm getting fueled, but I need to sleep and eat. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, yes. Just thinking about how hard we worked, Sometimes even on those days off, you'd be working in a simulator or the multi-axis trainer or the centrifuge or whatnot, and then they just keep working you. But I feel like the counselors really enjoyed it though. Like they had a sense
Yeah.
of pride to be there just because of all the cool things that, we get to simulate. So
Yeah. And then we saw half of them when we were back for the alumni fest. And this was my first too. Like all the alumni talk about it and the concerts and the fundraising and all the celebrations. And I'm like, we'll see. And then I get there and I'm like, oh, I get it. This is amazing. And everyone from the Hall of Fame folks to the astronauts to the alumni coming back from all over the world. I'll be going back from here on out. It should be really fun.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And it'll
Oh
be
my
cool.
gosh.
Even though I won't be on board anymore, I'll still at least get to see everybody and how much it grew.
Yes.
That'd be really cool.
Okay, and now I know how to dress because that heat, I forget. Like we've been there, we worked it, but going back to it now, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's hot. It's hot. Okay, so you graduate, you've had all this wonderful adventures. Then is now you're about to step into the military. You were called to serve, and we thank you. Tell me how your interest in space and aviation continued in service.
So when I was on active duty, I became a meteorologist, a weather officer, and one of the cool things I got to do, and I begged and worked really hard to get there, was my first assignment was in Germany. And at that time, in 2008 to about 2010, when I was there, we were still doing the transatlantic abort site landing sites, the TAL sites for the space shuttle.
Mm.
So knowing that we support those as a meteorologist, I had a connection there. She's like, yes, this person will be really good for this. And when I arrived, I trained to launch weather balloons. And then I shipped out to Zaragoza, Spain, and Istris and Morone. And I got to work at the TAL sites for the
Oh
space
my
shuttle.
gosh. So are you on the team that's helping to make the call to make sure weather there is also good and just observing?
I was a part of that. I know at Kennedy Space Center they had a specific weather person. I think I forgot her name, but
Okay.
she was there. I think she was active duty as well, and then became a civilian. But at least for us, we would help determine which would be the primary abort site.
Okay.
So what we used to do with the weather balloons, that data went to Johnson Space Center. So I already had an experience working with JSC, and then they would determine the tile site that way.
Wow. And this was right out of school. So you
Yeah.
did college first and then into the services and then you got this, did you have to test into this role? You said you had to earn it. What did that mean?
Um, I guess they just allowed me. They knew that I wanted to be in space, and so my friend there, my sponsor, the person that kind of helps you move when you move to a different base, get assigned a person to help you.
Okay.
We actually met in internship over the summer in college where we flew with the NOAA hurricane hunters.
Oh, oh, that was your internship?
Yeah, in
Wow.
ROTC.
Oh my gosh.
Um, and so we kept in touch, and then we both knew we were weather officers. So she got to Germany and said, "Hey, guess what I get to do?" And I was like, "Okay, I need to go there." she vouched for me to help me get there.
That's a good friend.
Yeah.
Are you still in touch?
We are. We keep in touch. We're on social media together. We've been friends since 2007, so
Oh, that's great.
long time.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Okay. When it comes to weather, and then I want to get into your work at JSC too, because this has always kind of been in your purview in the background. When you're learning weather, what's intimidating? Is it when weather patterns shift, or is it new things that maybe you haven't seen before, or is it what is it about weather that would have anyone who's in weather and studying weather get nervous if you do at all?
Um, I think since I was overseas pretty much my whole career in the military, which was about a decade, I was only working off of things that were provided from that specific country. So either
Okay.
if it was a language barrier or having to learn a new radar system or a satellite or anything like that, learning that specific type of rules of thumb, how the climate is, because Alabama might be or Texas might be a different climate than say Montana. And so
Sure.
just knowing the types of like wind flow or oh there's a system coming from the west, expect this, that could be pretty intimidating, so it's a learning curve as far as every place I moved. And you don't want to be wrong because it could be affecting lives or it could
Mm.
be affecting missions in the military sense. So that could be pretty intimidating or a little scary as far as like not being sure how to interpret weather models, because you could put 10 meteorologists in one room and we'll all have a different opinion of what's going to happen. So you can imagine being in a whole operations center with meteorologists trying to forecast, and you're like,
I would
no, I
love
don't
that. I
think
would
that.
love that. And then what do you do? Like, especially in Chicago, it's like, how many inches of snow is expected? You say 6, she says 9. Okay, what are we going to go with? 8?
Right, right. Sometimes you got to do that, just kind of not guess, but give your best educated
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, a good consensus. That's cool. I thought you were going to say something about oceanic weather is really intimidating because it's hard to predict, but I bet everything has patterns and rhythms
Mhm.
after a while. Like, what's new in weather? I mean, even when I'm hearing about like dust tornadoes or microbursts or tiny, even micro tornadoes, even, or lightning like tornadoes that have lightning. It's like, really, when it comes to weather, are there new things or have we seen it all?
I don't think we've. Mm, I don't know how to answer that because
Yeah,
that's
it's a
more like.
whole planet of history, right? So, but you've lived in different places and seen different, places based on the environment. But every time I hear of like, is falling ash a weather phenomenon or is that a natural phenomenon? How concerned should we be? How does it spread across? How does that impact residents that live to the east or the north? It's, and really, it's probably happened before, but I'm learning about it for the first time. So I'm sure you've studied so much.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Germany when the Icelandic volcano erupted in
Oh
2009.
my
And
gosh, what was that like?
um, that was actually kind of interesting and a little sad too, not just because of the event, but I was also 2 days later, I was supposed to go to Japan, but I couldn't go. But that's fine. I was like, well, I'm going to get stationed there, and I did. So,
Oh,
but anyways, no, it pretty much shut down Europe because I was in charge of flight weather briefings. So giving pilots their briefings from where they're going to go to a mission or transient somewhere. So I was like, well, there's volcano ash. It's not safe for your aircraft.
oh,
But I didn't really tell them that. I just kind of gave them the weather, and they determined what was safe for them. Um,
oh, okay.
so we're just kind of like the science aspect of it, and they kind of determine their risk assessment type of things.
Oh my gosh. So you can't just come out and say there's a volcano ash and we don't want you flying in it. You have to give them every other detail.
Yeah, I mean, it's we wouldn't. I'm not a specialist in the aircraft or the airframe, so
I
I wouldn't
see.
know what would be safe for them. I just let them know about what's happening and what is forecasted.
Okay. But you do fly on an incredibly large aircraft. I want to get into this because we mentioned aircraft. So let's go there. Um, any part of this, first of all, share with us what you fly on typically. And then are do bigger planes feel more comfortable to you? Because they do for me. And the smaller planes to me are like, no, no thanks. The bigger the better. What's it like flying on your plane?
So for your first question, I fly on the WC-130J, which is a variant of a C-130. The prefix W just stands for a weather bird. So it's a modified C-130, basically a weather system that flies,
A
which is
weather
really awesome.
system, like a building. It's as big as a building.
It Yeah, it's so funny because it's actually a shortened type of
Oh my.
a shortened C-130. We actually have a stretch too, which is part of another squadron that we have in our wing. They're our sister squadron. They're really cool too. But yeah,
Okay, so why so big? Does it have because of the altitude or the equipment inside? Why such a big plane?
it's mainly with the type of engine, because if we just had a regular turbine,
Oh,
it could flood the
oh,
engines and it wouldn't be safe. So the props kind of help with not flooding the engine, I guess. I'm not
okay.
really like too into the engineering aspect of it. I
Got
can tell
it.
you that more. So
No, I got it. I'd like to see the engines rotating as well, like the props. I mean, the props, especially in a storm. And so, oh my word. Tell me what it's like as you're approaching, please. And like, are you in focus mode and you're there to work? Or are you like half working, half observing? Like, I can't imagine, like any astronaut. And I very much consider you an astronaut, by the way, already, because you're in these altitudes and these unique phenomenon measuring and working, and you're seeing things most don't, and you're seeing it from a perspective truly unique. So, just like an astronaut who gets to where they need to be and then has that moment where they kind of take it all in, does that happen in a storm for you as well?
um I do get in a mode. I kind of, well, before I fly into a storm, I will kind of visually play it in my head of how I want to get myself into that headspace.
Okay.
Um, so after getting the requirements and mission briefing, while we're en route, I'll just, kind of just keep myself calm. And then about an hour or so, I'll start talking to the National Hurricane Center to get an updated forecast of the storm that we're going to be going into, and then relay it to the rest of the crew so we're all on the same page. Because at that point, once we enter the weather reconnaissance area, um, I'm in charge. Like, the weather officer is in charge of the mission success. Obviously, everybody else is a key role. We all have our moments of importance.
Okay.
Um, and at that point, we become the mission director. Um, so I guess once we get there, it's game on. I'm focused. The cockpit is sterile. So I'm guiding, the aircraft into the center of the storm to find the exact center. And
Oh
that's
my
part
gosh.
of probably the most um, focused I'm going to be once you're in the eye wall, and then once you're in the eye, and then exiting the eye wall if there is one, and then getting out. And that's your first leg in. And then we'll do that 2 or 3 times, depending on what the Hurricane Center wants. So
Oh
it's
my
not,
gosh.
luckily, I haven't had a scary storm yet. Um,
Okay.
but every storm I take very seriously, because you never know. That's why we're there. We're
Yeah.
going under the hood of like a car, to see how that storm is moving
Oh my
essentially.
gosh. And tell me about going into the eye from the air. Is it different? Is it more fierce, more intense? Is it oddly quiet?
What would you expect in a storm, like say a tropical storm or a category 1 or a category 4? What would you expect going into the storm?
Oh, going into the storm, I would expect massive debris, high winds, lots of fierce, like hail at that altitude, like the colder. And then I would expect the eye to be a lot more quiet.
Yeah. Ironically, a tropical storm or a very developing storm, it's pretty turbulent. It could be pretty turbulent. But when you get into those more organized, really pretty eyes, or eye walls, it's calm. Sometimes
Is
you
it?
won't even feel it going into punching through the eye wall and then into the eye, and then you'll get this beautiful stadium effect, which I've seen
Wow.
once or twice.
Oh my
So
gosh. And then
yeah,
what is storm season traditionally? Like when you know it's go time, are you like, don't book a vacation because storms are coming?
typically June 1st till about November 30th. 30th.
Ah, yeah. Okay. And do you fly in specific areas? Is it guaranteed like West Coast or East Coast, or is it wherever? Anywhere?
Pretty much where the storm takes us. But we do have our deployments are typically in St. Croix, Virgin Islands, which I find as my second home now because I've been
Yeah.
there so much. And then this year we also went to Curacao. We've also been to San Antonio, especially last year when Hurricane Ida was threatening the Gulf Coast.
Hmm.
If we can fly out of Keesler Air Force Base, which is in Biloxi, Mississippi, we will. It just kind of depends on how far the storm is and how much gas we have.
So the longer you can be up there, the better.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Um, so when you fly commercial, is it like taking a nap? Or are you like, oh, turbulence?
It's nice being a meteorologist and knowing what turbulence is. So whenever I fly with like my family, I'm like, it's okay, we're fine. You know, the wings aren't gonna fall off or anything like that. So
Good to hear. No, there's some of us even on commercial flights, including me, that I'm like, oh my gosh, please, if there's any turbulence, it's just a nervous wreck, Beth. So it's good. I'm glad to hear that because it really is just pockets, right? That just kind of bounce you along.
yep.
Oh my gosh. Good. I'm going to call you or have you on speed dial next time.
It's nice you can text on the airplanes now. They allow you texting services. So
Right? Okay. So you invited, you said yes, I'm going to do it. Um, well, it's that feeling that you're not in control and you don't know what you don't know. And it's just that wonderful feeling in your gut too, and that free fall that just kind of tickles you enough to be nervous. So I don't know how people can sleep on planes, but I'm sure you can on a commercial flight, right? You're like, perfect.
yeah, I think I can mostly. I can't really sleep on the C-130, but
Oh gosh.
yeah.
No. Oh my gosh. Okay. So when you're done, are you like full of adrenaline and you've got when you land and you get back, you have some time in between as you travel to and from the storm. Is that where you can kind of decompress, almost like going to work and then when you go and you take that drive and that commute, if you will, home, that's kind of like a nice time that you get to like just have a moment. Do you have that kind of on the plane before you get back and land? And are you relaying data like in the moment or as soon as you exit the storm so people on the ground can get that data?
Yeah. So for your first question, I can decompress after we leave the weather reconnaissance area out of the storm environment. Typically, I'm done from there, and we'll just coast home. But
Okay.
as mentioned earlier, the aircraft is kind of like a weather system. So the airplane is ingesting weather data um, by 1 second, 10 second, and 30 seconds, and then those 30-second data gets averaged into 10 minutes, and that data will get sent back to the National Hurricane Center, and that's kind of
Oh.
how they track us
Oh.
on our path. So they're about 10 minutes behind of what we're seeing essentially. So that data we can, you know, sometimes it will get ingested in the models or whatnot, what they do with that. So depending on if we turn our systems off or not, the aircraft is still collecting weather data.
We're seeing more and more frequent storms. Are you guys seeing the size of storms change too lately with climate change?
I don't really know how to answer that question.
Yeah. I don't
Um,
know either because I don't know. I've, to me, a hurricane's a hurricane and it's like the intensity. And I've only experienced a couple when I lived in Texas, and I evacuated, so that I did not experience a couple. I've a couple tropical storms, but when hurricanes came, I'm like, I'm a northerner. I am not sticking around to see any of this. But I'm just wondering, like, if we're seeing things that have changed over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, maybe more frequent or maybe larger or maybe longer duration. I don't know if you've
I
had
haven't
any of
actually
those.
done the study for that. I just know with the systems that we're getting, we're able to get more data and we're able to become more accurate with our forecasts. So, every time we do a flight, the forecast does increase about 25 to 30%. So that cone of uncertainty does get smaller, which is a benefit because it's money to evacuate a town. And
Yeah.
so, as far as frequency, I'm not quite sure,
Yeah.
climatologically. So yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, would be interesting to know as the oceans start to heat up a little bit and I don't know, coastal regions, the more they know, the better. So we all thank you so much for the job that you do and the information you give back so people can prepare or make decisions and lives are ultimately saved. And even it's kind of it's vacation talk, but I know a lot of people whose like boats and ships and cruise ships need to get rerouted or repositioned and think about all those ships that got all backed up during COVID and they had to like so many supply chain things and on top of that storms. There was a lot going on when it came to the weather and the situation, the environment over the last 2 years that I think people have been paying attention to more so than not. So
Yeah, absolutely.
lots going on. Oh my goodness. Okay, so when you're not flying into storms, you are at JSC.
I am.
When you graduated, was that did you have some jobs in between?
You mean between college and active duty
Yeah.
or
How did you get to JSC?
um let's see. So I have a really good friend who I met at Space Camp or Aviation Challenge. We were both counselors together
Okay.
and she landed her dream job in mission control. And
Oh
so
my
we just
gosh.
Yeah, so we kept in touch, and I was like, okay, soon I'm ready to make the jump because space has always been the dream. I love the military, I love serving, but the astronaut thing is has always been my lifetime goal. And so ever since 8 years old, high school, I said NASA's the dream. So being a meteorologist, typically that is not the type of degree that you have at NASA. But luckily, my friend she invited me to her holiday party in I think 2019, I believe, when I first moved to JSC. And we happened to sit by the talent manager, and she's like, "Yeah, just send me your
Oh
resume."
my
And then
gosh.
so it just so happened in that year in 2020 in January, I received an interview request to be an ops planner, flight controller for the ISS, and I got hired. So I attribute to, again, networking, having friends in the right places,
Yeah.
and right time, right place type of thing.
And the right skills, Joyce. You're so humble.
Oh,
Um, Does that come naturally, the scheduling part? Are you like finding that that was a skill that you were like, this is military, like you've learned it in the military, you've always had that skill set and now to apply it just was a natural progression?
I think it was more of a puzzle. I love puzzles, and planning has a lot to do with knowing the International Space Station. Is there any spatial constraints? For example, if they're doing cargo operations, taking cargo off of, say, the SpaceX Dragon, they can't do certain things because they're moving to and from within that module.
Mm.
And so just knowing that, or if they're exercising, they can't do certain things because it could be a constraint. So having that knowledge and having the skill of solving puzzles and things like that, I think that helped more. Um, I think as far as the military goes, the discipline and
Mhm.
um, basically being thrown into things that you don't really aren't really comfortable with. Because every time I moved maybe every 2 years or a year, 2.5 years at the most. I always had to learn a new job within 6 months because I was a leader. So I had to know the job, but also know how to manage people.
Wow.
I think just being able to have that rhythm of, okay, I know what I need to study. I know kind of have a battle rhythm, know the procedures type of thing. So that helped being in the military.
Oh my gosh. And finally getting to NASA. So great. That's so great. And really good friends. Holy cow, that started at Space Camp. Space Camp is
Yeah,
so much more than just camp, I'm telling you, as we're
it really
hearing.
Yep.
And so I love it because even as we're all finding in our houses over COVID that it's great to work from home. It's so wonderful for us. Like we're a family of four and to have everyone home, that's great. And then people need their space, but they also want to be together. But then they need to go somewhere else to focus. But then you've got to be somewhere else to like have your space and work out or cook, just like on station. And I think folks have gotten really comfortable with our 20 plus years of our orbiting lab and international peacetime project of station being so successful, but the challenges are ever continuing with new commercial space projects like and vehicles like Dragon, and then of course a ever changing crew with different experiments and payloads. Yeah, I bet that job keeps you busy and makes you work really hard because there's a lot going on at all times.
And the cool thing about planning is that you kind of learn about everybody's position in the flight control team. So my husband works in Robo, and him and I will talk about certain things in Robo. And I was like, "Did you know about this? I have to like plan your, Robo MT translator or something, you know." And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool. I worked on it." So it's kind of cool to have family within NASA as well and friends that
Yeah.
are also flight controllers. For example, I was on console a couple weeks ago, and I didn't realize it was my friend on the other side who I was talking to. And I was like, "Wait a minute!" And I teams her. I was like, "Are you on console?" She's like, "Yeah, that was me." I was gonna say something snarky, but then I was like, "I'm training right now."
Oh
So,
my gosh. What is Robo?
robotics.
Okay,
So the camera
robotics.
arm. Yeah.
That's so cool. Is your husband there now? Is he still working Robo or is he in a different division?
He's still in robotics.
Cool. That's amazing. So cool. Oh my gosh. So now, okay, when you're not fine and you're not at JSC, what do you enjoy when it comes to space? Is it the things that we're exploring? Did you get to see Artemis at all? I think I saw from your social that you were somewhere at a launch party. Where were you when you saw Artemis?
I was at the watch party for the splashdown watch party at JSC.
So cool. I bet it was off the charts, the energy there and just the gratitude, and I bet you could hear a pin drop till that thing landed safe in that water.
It was. If you need motivation and excitement, that is a place to be, especially in something big like that. I mean, I almost didn't want to go because it was a Sunday, but I was like, no, this is historic. This is my generation. I'm gonna go. And
What a
you saw
moment.
people from different age ranges, but everybody was there to celebrate, one like something that brought us together. I feel like space is something that brings people and countries and stuff like that together, so it's really awesome.
Did you see some tears too?
Probably my own.
Ah! Yeah. Oh my gosh. I remember, and I was in the Teague Auditorium when we first saw the shuttle, the very first time they put cameras on the external tanks. And when
Okay.
it launched, and we got to see the Cape just get smaller and smaller and smaller, and no one had ever seen that before. We had never seen that before. I know I'm dating myself, but it was like this moment where all of us were like in disbelief, but also in awe. Like we knew what we were seeing, but we just had never had that privilege. And so we're watching it there, and no one was breathing. Everyone was just, and that was just an external tank camera looking back down at, the launch site. And now that's every time, we get to see such incredible views. So for the folks that have been in the program and the moon's return has been promised for so long, that was definitely probably a moment. I'm glad you got to experience that. Oh my
Yeah, that was
gosh.
really cool. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. So where are we going to be, you and I, when a woman walks on the moon in a few short years? And then get the Kleenex box because I will not stop.
I hope we'll be in the same place.
Yeah. You mean watching from a close, like maybe the launch site or somewhere nearby?
I hope so. I mean, I hope they'll have something special for women in STEM or
Yeah.
something. I don't know, but
Space Camp alumni turned JSC employees turned
yeah.
something. Yeah, I know. That's gonna be, I mean, that it's like even when we went to space camp, they would say to us, and I mean, I don't know if you remember who came to speak to your graduation, but they always have like a special guest.
Mhm.
And we had a Warner von Braun colleague. I cannot remember who it is right off the top of my head right now, but it was someone who had the privilege of working with Warner von Braun. And he
Wow.
came, I know. So there I was, younger me, like touching a little bit of a part of space history from the moon, Apollo days, and then the honor of getting to work at JSC and walking the halls and just being part of that history and then seeing it actually come full circle and us returning. I have to, but it's going to be the bow on it when a
Yeah,
woman, not only I want to hear her voice, I want to hear what she says, her steps, but I want to, the moment she takes off and everything in between, I'm going to be like, mission everything and stop, pause everything else in my life to observe and watch and enjoy what will make history. And then I will finally feel like everything we were given as a promise at space camp has arrived.
absolutely. I can't imagine what it's going to be like to have to decide who that woman is going to be. Like, how do you choose that person? Because they're all amazing, you know. And
Yeah,
I, that's a hard thing for the astronaut office. I'm glad I don't have to make that.
I am too. I know it's like picking your favorite kid to go with you on a
Yeah.
vacation or something. I don't know how they're going to do it, but you know what? There has to be a first. So lucky person will it will be someone, and there's so many qualified people. And we can guess now, but there's a whole new astronaut corps that's obviously in training, the Artemis now. And then there's some amazing astronauts that I would have loved to have seen, as you and I know, some of them that we would have been like, she would have been amazing. She would have kicked ass. And I'm thinking of a few right now at the top of my head that you and I both know, but we can pick pretty much any of them. When I
Yeah.
worked at JSC, I'll never forget Shannon Lucid came in the elevator
Oh,
next to me and I almost peed my pants. I was like, oh my gosh. It's just like I used to read about you in those history books and
yeah.
now I'm standing next to you in the elevator. And this happened with some of the male astronauts too, but Shannon Lucid is a tough lady.
Oh, yes. And it's so funny. Earlier this year, too, I got to meet one of the astronauts I looked up to as a kid, Eileen Collins,
Oh
and
my gosh.
test pilot, Air Force officer, first shuttle commander. And when I finally got to meet her, I was like trying to. When I was in line, I was like, I can't believe I'm meeting her finally. I've been following her like since I was a kid, and I was with my husband, and I was like, this is what I'm going to ask her. I'm going to tell her I'm in the Air Force. I fly into hurricanes. And when I got up there, I just stood there. I was like, oh my gosh. And then my husband was like, are you going to say something?
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, hi, ma'am. Like, I'm in the Air Force as well. Cause she wrote aim high. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm in the Air Force. I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was like, oh my gosh.
You were starstruck
I was. They're
because
like my movie stars.
well, you know exactly what she went through to get there, and you
Oh,
respect
yes.
that. That's what it is. It's not like, I mean, she's beautiful and amazing and talented and incredible, and she's accomplished so much, but she's also like walked this path that was truly her own and unique and hard, and she's earned it. So you're really standing in awe and respect of her journey as much as how cool she is. I get it. Oh yeah. Yeah, same with Shannon Lucid. I'm like, you had to live with dudes on Mirror. What was that like? Like, you are the original before there was Station.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, near.
Mirror. I know. And yet again, I'm aging myself, but gosh, and everyone has to start somewhere. So, have you ever considered Space Force on your journey too? Because that seems like such a perfect match.
I If the Hurricane Hunters did go to Space Force, then perhaps. But I guess a little backstory with the Hurricane Hunters is that when we went to technical school to become a weather officer in the Air Force after graduating college, you go through a school to learn that trade that you're going to be essentially be for your career in the Air Force.
Mhm.
And I went to Keesler Air Force Base, which is in Biloxi, Mississippi, and we toured the Hurricane Hunters. And so that's kind of like where it all happened. I kind of lost my train of thought. What was your question?
Oh, Space Force.
Oh, yeah. But since it's in an Air Force Reserve, I don't think they're going to transition to the Space Force or anything
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
the Hurricane Hunter was essentially another like goal of mine as well to be part of, because you're air crew and you pretty much like the cool kids of
Yes,
meteorology.
you
I'm
are.
a nerd, I
Yes, you are.
guess. So
Yes, you are. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then, to meet Eileen Collins, and she was Air Force as well, right?
yes,
Oh my gosh. There's a lot of great Air Force astronauts, really great ones. Um, still and still. And I love that. Well, back in the day, I think you and I realized that that was going to be part of the journey and part of the path towards air astronaut journey. And now, you know, a lot of people say do what you love because that's going to be the majority of your career, and being an astronaut is going to be a part of your career. So make sure everything else is what you love and you enjoy and you can become engaged in. Would
right.
you, knowing that, and if you didn't have to Air Force towards um, becoming an astronaut, would you still go into meteorology, you think?
I think so. I've always My mom has always said that every time I was a kid, I was looking up. And meteorology was something I also enjoyed as well because there was a forecaster, the broadcast forecaster from our local TV show that came to my kindergarten class, and he kind of talked about weather. And I was like, "Oh, weather is so cool!" And then I would give little forecasts to my mom
Did you
and dad,
really?
yeah, I did, and
Oh,
take
how
pictures of
cute.
clouds and stuff. And so I think meteorology and space has always been something that I enjoyed. There's also other off off things that I enjoy. Like I'm also a certified EMT, which is like totally random, but
Oh no,
um,
that's what all explorers would like, a good AMT with them on their admission. That's cool. So
yeah. And
you
then
you've always been in these high stress places. So now we've got to get into how you stay calm.
I crochet.
Do you really?
I do.
That's awesome.
Yep.
What do you make?
Recently I've made. Have you seen Adventure Time? The
No.
cartoon Adventure
Mm-mm.
Time. It's about this human called Finn the human and then Jake the dog. I recently went to a birthday party and we dressed up as our favorite cartoon characters, and I was Jake the human, and
Aw.
my husband wasn't the dog, so I crocheted a dog.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and I just make like little random things like Baby Yoda or a shark or a jellyfish.
I did see that. You had Baby Yoda fly with you a couple times, right?
That
Appear. I
one,
think I remember him appearing in some of your missions.
I think that was a chicken.
Oh, the chicken. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, how fun. What is it about crocheting? Is it the monotony of just the small, movements, and you have to like just you not really focus, but you can't like stop, and you can kind of have a conversation while you go, but you can't like answer an email.
Right. I've actually told my husband, I was like, "I'm counting right now. Please just let me count real quick." But no, I think it's just seeing something that's cute that I want to make, and I was like, I could do that, and then it's like a challenge. And then yeah, I think that just not the monotony, but just the motion of
Yeah.
doing something and then seeing something develop, which has been cool. I haven't been successful all the time, but I think that's the challenge that I enjoy as well, is what can I do better? Or
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this as a present or something.
And as
Um,
an EMT, what keeps you calm on some of those runs that can be pretty intense?
Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do that too much because the other two jobs that I've had, and it was COVID, and I didn't want to put myself in that situation
Yeah.
with the other two jobs that I had. But the time that I did go on rotation, just trusting the training that I had and the people that I was with, um, putting trust that they're going to take care of me, teach me, which they did. I was with a fire department and I got to work in the ER, so
Wow.
that was really cool. Just something totally different, but I didn't see
Amazing.
anything gross or anything. So,
Oh, darn. Don't
which
you
is good
want to?
because I do, but I'm glad people were safe.
Of course. Yes. Yes. I'm totally speaking as a parent. It's like, Okay, I can handle it if I have to, but that doesn't mean I want to. But if it comes my way, I got you. I got this. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, gotta do it.
I remember a kid that came over to play with my son, and he unfortunately like had some kind of minor surgery on his foot like days before. And for my son and he were bouncing on the trampoline.
Mhm.
And I was in the house and I knew they were outside. So I was in the house and I knew they were out in the yard. And all of a sudden there's like puddles of blood on the deck.
Oh
And
my
I was
gosh.
like, okay, before I freak out, both of the boys are standing and talking. No one's passed out. They have all their limbs. Like I'm just slowly going through like, what is going on here? And then I'm like, what happened? And he's like, I had some surgery earlier in the week. And the Band-Aid came off and we bounced
Oh
on the
my
trampoline. I'm like, okay, I didn't know feet bled that much, but okay. And then I called the mom and I'm like, is this of concern? She's like, no. I'm like, can I go back to playing? She's like, if you're okay, if they're okay. And I'm like, great. And it was just kind of that moment that I'm like, what level do I need to panic? Let me see. Everyone's okay? Stitches? No, we're good. Okay. And
Oh
I've
wow.
had I mean, that's just so minor, but the blood was everywhere. It was all over the deck. And my husband was like, we need to hose the deck down.
Oh
And I
my
was like, they're okay. But yeah, those are moments where some people panic, some people do. Everyone's different.
Mhm.
Um, those are some of the things for me that don't panic me. Calling you during turbulence is definitely my panics. I'm gonna call you.
I'm here for you. I'm here for you.
Especially as I fly Chicago West and you're going like over Earth, the mountains,
Yeah.
right before California, and it's just gonna bounce you along.
Oh yes.
That's tough stuff, Joyce. I don't like it.
We don't we luckily we try to stay over the water. Um so we don't like to fly over land.
The storm chaser likes the storms and the water. Okay, so here's a question. What do you think is the Bermuda Triangle?
I only know the story of Amelia Earhart. You know the
So
funny Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
The funny thing is that we will fly storms if it is gonna potentially impact Bermuda. So last year, I flew into Hurricane Sam, which became a Category 4 because of the threat to Bermuda. And I was like, "Are we getting close to the triangle? Because I don't know about this."
Oh my
But
gosh. And
I'm scared.
you've flown through it or
I don't
close?
I don't think I flew in it, but
Okay.
I think we stayed more towards, like, the west.
Ah, interesting. I don't know. There's all kinds of legends. There's like methane from the Earth's core that comes up through the water, and that gas, can be disruptive for obvious reasons, or true turbulence where oceanic currents meet and then can't handle by ships. I don't know. I don't know. I
I
would.
don't know.
Okay, it's
Maybe
good
one of
to
your
know
listeners.
you don't want to fly in it either, because that's good.
Yeah. I try not to let conspiracy theories or things like that affect me, but I won't mess with ghosts or anything like that.
Oh,
So,
that okay.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. Well, and I can only imagine like pilots, especially probably astronauts too, definitely Navy and shipmen. They have their I don't want to call them nuances, but maybe or superstitions, but yeah, me neither. I don't if there's a thing that even is a shadow of a hint, let's not go there. Let's not
Yeah,
test
like,
it. I don't even want
no.
to. But let's do talk about some things coming up that are next. We've got Artemis. We're definitely looking forward to that.
Mhm.
We're always going to have weather, but now we're outside of weather season. So when you're not serving, you're on call. What's the farthest that you've had to travel from base? Do you usually stay within the coastal US or do you get to sometimes go? I know if you're stationed in Germany, you obviously work for that, but do you stay mostly in US?
Now I do, yes. Actually, when we're not flying in hurricane season, we do winter storms as well,
Ooh.
which is called atmospheric rivers. They're big bands of moisture that comes in and pretty much provides the majority of the precipitation on the West Coast, about 25 times of the Mississippi River sometimes of
Whoa.
precipitation. So that area is very data sparse. And so they send us out there. We drop these instruments called dropsondes. They look like a Pringles can. which is a vertical profile of just that single point as it's falling. And we'll drop about 25 to 30 of those. So
Wow.
I'm getting ready to go do that in Sacramento. We station in Sacramento and deploy out to wherever the storm is in the west coast, um, Pacific Ocean out there. So it
Okay.
could be about 10 to 12 hours flying, doing those missions.
Wow. I've never heard this. Atmospheric rivers.
Mhm.
And you can literally see like I'm sorry. You say it.
Precipitation.
Precipitation on the map, like on the radar, like actually just kind of flowing along as
Yeah,
it
it looks like a
releases.
big swath of clouds that's going to come in, hit the West Coast. And typically we like to go out there about 4 days prior to an event occurs. But unlike the National Hurricane Center, who tasks us to go to fly into hurricanes, our customer is Scripps out in San
Oh,
Diego.
okay. And then when they get that data, what do they do with it?
That gets fed into a model, a forecast model, like because there's really no weather sensors out there except us that provides that data, and then they can provide that information to prepare for like dams if they need to open up the dams or not, or get ready for a heavy snowfall. I think I remember seeing, don't quote me on this, but I think the freeze that we had in Texas was a result of one of the atmospheric rivers that came through
Wow.
during February. I was actually in Reno, I think, at the time when that happened, flying atmospheric rivers. So I think that was an impact. So it could flow, through a good portion of the United States. And just having that data is just so beneficial for preparing governments and the cities.
Yeah. Especially cities like San Antonio that just don't have the resources to prepare. And like a lot of people don't know, how do you wrap your pipes for 3 days to keep them from freezing? Or how do you, I mean, you don't even have those kind of supplies usually. So that was tough stuff. And who would have known that that was the result of an atmospheric river? Wow. And then when you do relay the data and people do get the time to prepare, what a joy. But is it always, that's the challenge, right? Is like sometimes there's days, sometimes there's hours. Do things sometimes move fast or not so much with these rivers?
I'm not quite sure how, as far as the movement goes, but typically the forecast will be a couple days out to prepare.
Okay,
We'll fly pretty much just during the daytime and fly as high as feasible. So about 29,000 feet to 30,000 feet. So it gives them a couple days for them to prepare however they need to for their cities or their governments.
that's good. That's good. Have you ever considered doing an analog as an analog astronaut?
I would love to. I
Let's do it. I think you'd be great.
think it'd be a lot of fun, honestly.
Yes. Well, it'd be great to have you on the team. I would totally relax as an EMT certified, as a scheduler certified. I mean, you just have so many great skills because even on the analogs, it's like you only have limited time and you want to get the most out of it. And there's so much science and so many people bring in like personal projects or research projects or, anything that they want to get accomplished because they're taking time off work or from their family as well. And so that's sacred time and they want to get it all in. So having you on the team would just be glorious to say, how do we get all this into the days we have and consider? And there have been analogs that have been totally destroyed by weather because sometimes the equipment can't go outside or sometimes you can't physically get outside because if it's too damp or too wet,
Oh,
then yeah, it's crazy. It would be so great to have you. It could really be a good advisor, but we'd want you to have your own experience too. And you'd be what a great little tick on the path towards your astronaut. Have you applied officially when they do the call
I have
outs?
I have done an application. I did go through the whole process of the testing and doing the VR motion sickness
Me
study and things like
too.
that. But unfortunately, because of hurricane season, I was unable to do it this summer. I wasn't selected per se, but I was potentially could be on a crew. Um, and I got asked again, but then I was like, no, I can't because I'm training
Oh my
for
gosh.
ops planning. And so, but I have contributed. I just finished a NASA study. Um, During the summertime, we're doing cognitive, like a commercial off the shelf cognitive app for potentially using on those long duration missions to the moon and Mars. So
Maybe
that's
test it on an analog. Hmm.
so I'm still putting myself out there as a test
That's
subject,
great. Oh
much
my
as I
gosh, I would love to see that part of your journey really come to fruition for you. It just seems like you're a natural. I mean, you've got so many other things that you love doing, and you're so well rounded, and you've got all the skills that would make for a great teammate and a great explorer. And you
Thanks.
you have and you can stay calm and not have the fear too. So, I mean, it's just screaming astronaut right now. Where would you like to go? Station, Leo, to the moon?
I would love to go to the station to do science experiments to further, research and like cancer research or plant habitation. I see the schedule almost daily whenever I'm at work, and I'm like, that would be a really cool science project, or just fixing the dreaded Cedra, but just being up there because I think I'd just be happy as a clam, just saying I made it, and
Oh
I'd
my.
be down for anything.
We would be happy for you. I would just have to just say, I remember her before. And it all started at space camp. Honestly, actually, it started in fifth grade with your visit from the meteorologist. And I think that's great. Oh my gosh. Well, there's a lot of kiddos that are listening. How would you encourage them to stick on their path or create their own to get to their dreams, whatever exploration that may bring?
Honestly, I would just say to find something that you enjoy doing, because once you find something that you're passionate about, everything else will fall into place.
So
Because it's not
true.
going to feel like work. It's just going to be something you enjoy doing day in and day out, and opportunities will open up for you. Just like for me, I became a meteorologist, and from being a meteorologist, I got to do Talsite for the space shuttle. From there, I got to work with Johnson Space Center. So space and meteorology, they don't really coincide, but they can. And from there, I got to become a hurricane hunter as well and work at JSC. So I enjoy what I do. So it opportunities will just keep coming up. So just enjoy life.
That's great advice. I agree. Oh my gosh, Joyce, I'm so glad that we finally got to
I
chat
know.
together. This was really great fun. I know that your board time at Space Camp is ending, but we're going to be seeing you as we continue to celebrate the alumni. And then will you come back on the show as we have more weather questions in the
Absolutely.
future? We'd love to have you be our in-house show specialist meteorologist. How does that sound?
That sounds a lot of fun. I love talking to kids, and so whatever I can do to help to inspire not just meteorology or space, but just STEM in general, because that's going to make the world turn as well.
That would be great. You know, kids oftentimes, if they can't think, especially if they're younger, everyone's imaginative as a kid and you're naturally curious. But sometimes it's right there in front of us before we get to space, the clouds and the weather and how things work on in our atmosphere. And so we would love if we could gather some questions. And the next time you come on, we'll keep them and we'll ask you a bunch of them and you can help guide us through.
Sure, I would love that.
That would be great. Oh, Joyce, thank you so much for joining us today and good luck on your journey, no matter where takes you.
Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this.
You too. All right, we'll see you again soon.
Yep, see you then.